Welcome to YERME interview series. My name is Dorota Lembrer, and I am going to conduct the interview of Konstantinos Tatsis and Jana Trgalova. I welcome all the viewers on behalf of myself and the YERME representatives, Dylan and Luca. Welcome, Jana and Konstantinos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Konstantinos is the IPC chair for YESS13, and Jana has been a leader of working groups at YESS since from YESS9 to YESS12, and currently Jana is a member of the IPC team and works with the preparation for the summer school. Today's interview will be around your experiences as researcher in math education. But before we go there to set of our questions, I would like to ask you to tell us a bit about yourself. When you conducted your PhD, at which university, what country, where are you currently working, and so on. So, Jana, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Dorota. I did my PhD many years ago in the last century, 1995, in France. So it was my first time when I came to France. I come from Slovakia, where I did my master in pure mathematics. And so my PhD dates to 1995 in Grenoble in France. Then I had quite a long period of assistant professor, starting at the University of Grenoble and then in Lyon. And since 2022, I have a position of assistant associate professor at the University for Teacher Training in Lausanne in Switzerland.
Thank you, Jana. So one can say you have been moving around Europe.
Yes, yes. This is actually my passion, and I haven't mentioned that in between my PhD and my position back to France, I spent 2 years in Montreal, Canada, as a postdoc at Concordia University in Montreal.
Thank you, Jana, for the introduction. Konstantinos, so when was your PhD time?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us to be here. It's a pleasure. Well, my PhD. I defended my PhD back in 2005. The title of my PhD thesis was The Relationship of Mathematical and Verbal Abilities in Problem Solving. And 1 year later, my academic career began. I started working as an adjunct lecturer at the University of the Aegean in Greece, teaching at the Department of Preschool Education and Educational Design. A couple of years later, I moved to the University of Western Macedonia in Greece as well, and I worked as a lecturer at the Department of Early Childhood Education. And 3 years later, in 2012, I moved to the University of Ioannina in Greece again, where I currently teach as an associate professor, preparing future primary school teachers. All these years, I've been teaching courses on mathematics and mathematics education.
Thank you, Konstantinos. So your career path also showing on movement, maybe within Greece, but still a movement between universities, different departments, probably different academic traditions and different tasks. So
Exactly.
Thank you very much for your introduction. So we will move into first part of the interview. The interview is divided in 3 parts. We call this part your current work as mathematics education researcher. So you will begin with an opening question to you, Konstantinos. So can you please short describe your area of research?
Yes. My research is mainly focused on verbal communication and how it affects the establishment of mathematical meanings. I could say that I'm interested in how language shapes mathematical thinking and learning. I'm also interested in how language shapes mathematical identities.
Mm.
Lately, I also investigate the processes of problem posing. For example, how it can be included in everyday school practices, how it can be assessed, and how generally it can improve the students' learning in mathematics.
Thank you, Konstantino. Jana, you have begun your academic career in mathematics. What is your area of research currently, or past to the present and the future?
My area of research since my PhD is around digital technologies. Already my PhD was about Cabri geometer, maybe one of the first dynamic geometry software that was developed at the time that I was doing my PhD. And perhaps thanks to my previous education in pure mathematics and computer science, I was involved in development of Cabri. So I was involved in the implementation of conic sections into Cabri. And so then I did also a study of teaching and learning conic sections in secondary school in the framework of my PhD. And so since then, I have been interested in digital technologies, not only dynamic geometry, but also other software. And progressively, my research area encompassed digital resources. So I am interested in the design of digital resources, in the use mostly by teachers, how they appropriate digital resources, and also the question of quality. What are the quality criteria? How to evaluate digital resources?
Thank you, Jana, and thank you, Konstantina. And I think that a relatively short introduction to your research is also opening up for the opportunity for those who listen. Okay, but if I want to read a bit more about communication and verbal communication and the language, how language shapes pupils or students' mathematical learning, I will search on Konstantino's work. So, and of course, if I wanted to know more about digital resources and the qualities in those, I do a search for Jana's work. So thank you very much for the introduction. A short one, but I think it gives quite much to those who listen and watching that interview. To you, Jana. Jana, yes. Please tell us what motivated you to become a mathematics education researcher.
I must confess that my first encounter with mathematics education as a field of research is a matter of mere coincidence. As I already mentioned, I obtained my master in pure math in my home country. And at this time, I was already speaking French. So when I graduated from the university, I was dreaming about how to combine French and math in my future career. And so it just happened that I was hired as a teacher at a French-speaking high school. But I should enter the position within 2 or 3 years. And in the meanwhile, I obtained a scholarship for doing a master and a PhD study in France. And so when I mentioned to people who were offering me this scholarship about my future teacher position, they suggested me to go to Grenoble and to follow a master and PhD in mathematics education. So this is how I came about research in math education. And so progressively, I started enjoying researching phenomena related to teaching and learning mathematics, and especially definitely around digital technology. So yeah, this was my my getting into the research in math education.
Thank you, Jana. And thank you for sharing that and being honest. That is actually a coincidence by a few things happened and pieces build a full picture. And that is where you are. I very much appreciate that. So, Konstantinos, what motivated you to become a mathematics education researcher?
Well, my story is the following. I graduated from a mathematics department. So I began my career as a mathematics teacher, working in secondary schools, even giving some private lessons. After a short time, I don't know, a couple of years or something, I realized that I was not pleased with my own teaching. I felt there should be something more than teaching students how to memorize some facts in order to pass the exams. So I started searching a bit. Reading initially some Greek articles about mathematics education. So one thing led to another, and I contacted my future supervisor at that time, and she accepted me, and then I began my career as a mathematics education researcher. Summing up, what motivated me? Well, maybe the realization that I'm not a good enough mathematics teacher.
Thank you, Konstantino. And as you began your answer to this question, you also mentioned that you were curious. And I think curiosity is one of many important, how to say, skills and mathematics education researcher kind of need, to be curious, to understand something.
Indeed.
And one also might say that maybe your students wouldn't say that you were not a good teacher. Maybe it's that a self-criticism brought you to the curiosity path and to beginning. But yes, being curious and actually question what we are doing, because actually I presume that is what you say, that begin to question your way of teaching brought you further. Thank you, Konstantino.
Thank you.
So we will go further to the second part of the interview, which is we call based on your experiences. So from your current work as mathematics education researcher, to the path that we call it based on your experience. So, Konstantino, please name one book or article or a book chapter or any publication which you think that every researcher in math education should read, and tell us 1 or 2 sentences about why.
This is a really hard question. This is even a tricky question, I would say. You know, I believe that what you read affects the way you make your research. And sometimes your research may lead you to a particular way to view your data and then to particular readings. Concerning, there are many works which have influenced considerably my career, because I can talk about my career. If I have to choose one, I would choose a particular paper by Erna Jackel and Paul Cobb. The title of the paper is Socio-Mathematical Norms, Argumentation and Autonomy in Mathematics. According to me, I think that this paper has set the ground for numerous studies on discourse and communication, of course. And the novelty of that approach, let's say, was that it went above the surface of mathematical terminology and pure mathematical language. This paper went into the meta rules which regulate what is said and what is done in the mathematics classroom, which is very, very important. And I will stop here because I could talk longer for that paper, but people can read it, whoever is interested.
Yes, thank you, Konstantinos. And yes, it might be, I will shortly go to Jana and ask her about her example of an article or book, but I very much appreciate how you telling about this, that reading affects at the way we do research, because when we read, we also bring with us certain things that we use later as a base for the knowledge that and the understanding that we later create in our research. And of course, there is many different books or chapters to use, but one example might be enough to say what you shared with us, that reading do affect our research. So thank you for sharing this. And Jana, what would be your example of article or book that every researchers in math education should read?
I agree with Konstantinos that this is a very difficult task to choose just one publication. I was thinking a lot to make this selection that would not be tied to my personal research area, which are digital technologies, because maybe other people will watch the video, the interview. So I was thinking about something more general. And then I realized that I came across with the chapter about the research Pentagon that you, Dorota, know very well. This was at the occasion of one YESS, when we were leading with Angelica an online group. And we prepared together, and she was mentioning her chapter. So this is a chapter, The Research Pentagon, a diagram with which to think about research. It is a chapter that is definitely more addressing young researchers, but I think it also helped me in thinking about the research I am doing, because it is a tool that helps to somehow pay attention to a coherence of the whole research project by thinking about research object, about research questions, about the theories, methodologies, and so on that we use, and to think about the research as a coherent whole. So I think this is something that every young researcher should read, and perhaps maybe senior researchers would find many interesting aspects in this chapter.
Thank you, Jana. Indeed, it is a tricky question, like you both are saying, because we can answer on it in a different way, and also it makes us think. So because you said that, Jana, I would like to ask you a bit more. So, and then go to Konstantinos. So Konstantinos has a couple of minutes to also go back to his search. So what have you been thinking about when you were doing your choice of the article that you will share with us? Was there any particular thing you were thinking about, important, less important, what to consider?
I was thinking about something that could be useful to any researcher in math education, regardless the specific area of research. And also something that is more like helping to think at the meta level about the research we do. So this was perhaps my reason for the choice of this particular chapter.
Thank you. And Konstantina, what are your how were you thinking? How the thinking was going when you were, oh, this is a tricky and very challenging question?
Yeah, in my case, I tried to look back, and I tried to see which reading was the most influential, let's say, in my own career. I couldn't. I wanted to see it like that. But I can still share with you an anecdote that when I first met my future supervisor, her only, her welcoming advice was, please take the book Thought and Language by Vygotsky and read it. That's all.
That was all.
You know, I'm trying to say that what I said before, that our readings define our research, and sometimes our research, of course, affects what we read. I agree with the suggestion of Jana. I think this is very important and very useful reading. But you know, I saw it a bit differently.
Yeah, and I think I very much grateful for your spontaneous reflections on regards to this part of the interview, and also the honest sharing of we do as researchers and as educators, as teachers, do have different motivations and different way of thinking in regard to how we do respond to a challenge we got, or might call it a challenge, but respond to something we have gotten on our table to work with, and all perspectives are important and all the motivations are good behind it. So thank you once again for sharing with us your motivations and ways and thoughts about reading or sharing one article or book with us. So we will go further and continue with a question to Jana about advices. So the question is, which advice was or would have been helpful for you at the beginning of your career? Is there something that you were thinking, oh, it would be great that I will get this advice early on?
Yes, so this brings me back to my beginning as a mathematics education researcher. And I would say that what I missed as advice was some kind of help to present my work, to publish. I was never encouraged to present and to publish, so I put a long time before I dared to submit a paper and so on. So I think this is what I try to cultivate in my doctoral students, that when they have a result and I help them to identify a result that is worth publishing, to present, to go and to participate to conferences, to present their results, to publish, to get known, and to make their results known by other people. So I think this is very important for their future career.
Thank you, Jana. And Konstantinos, which advice was or would have been helpful for you at the beginning of your career?
Well, actually, I will have to repeat what Jana said, but to the opposite direction, which means that the basic assumption is that Greece, my country, is a small country. So the most helpful advice that I had indeed received was that I should do my best to present my work in the international community via conferences and scientific journals. So I was motivated to do it, and I did it. I mean, to the extent that I could.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this advice, together with all the feedback that I had received from colleagues throughout these years, has been so helpful in advancing my work.
Thank you, Konstantino. And so an advice to actually open up to national, international community, or like Jana said, to take on the challenge by support of experienced researcher to publish or present the work is an advice that you continue with and work to, or sending forward, to say so. Thank you. So, Konstantino, what is one advice or suggestion you always give to postgraduate students or mentorees that you support?
Well, this is a rather easy question, because this advice goes throughout master students, PhD students, sometimes undergraduate students. So the advice that I give them concerns the way they present their work. For example, in a research report or in a conference presentation. What I tell them is this, that the reason you present your work is for the others to understand it, and not for you to show what you've done. In other words, you have to try to be clear, you have to be concise, and you have to follow a specific structure. You have to always think, I'm telling them, of the person who will be reading your paper or seeing your presentation. That's
yeah, and I think personally that this is a tough and very difficult thing to do. That's why I think what you also mean is that we have to challenge ourselves in that thing about the receiver of your presentation, so things are clear and you bring with it all the pieces, because not necessarily they have been through your process, but you want to share the process of your thesis on the undergraduate level or your PhD thesis on a postgraduate. It works in any ways, on any levels. Thank you, Konstantino. Jana, so what is one advice or suggestion you always give to your postgraduate students or mentorees?
My advice will be somehow related to what I previously said, but I would encourage young researchers to get involved and participate as much as possible at various scientific events, all kinds of seminars, conferences, presentations, directly or even indirectly related to their own research area. Because we are part of a community and we have so much to learn from each other, that these for me are great opportunities to learn about the field, not only about own research area, but about the field, and cultivate the curiosity, as you said at the beginning of the interview. I think this is something that they should keep all over their career.
Thank you, Jana. So meeting and presenting and taking part of other presentation of the research in the field, in whatever kind of circumstances that would be. To summarize, actually, both of your ways of answer, both are your answers to this question, and take it into consideration. Who am I presenting for? Thank you for those advices. So, Jana, there's coming another question that I would say that is a challenging one. In your opinion, what are the key topics or challenges for the future research in education, especially in mathematics education?
I think in relation with digital technology, there are many challenges. We still don't know whether technology helps. We have some partial results, but we do not have any, I think, convincing research that would persuade anyone that digital technology contributes to teaching and learning of mathematics. Mm-hmm. But I would mention another challenge that for me is one of the foremost, and it is how to connect research and practice, because I think we have a lot of research results, but in our everyday teacher training activity, we struggle in sharing this research and in realizing these implications in teachers' practices. So I think maybe this is, I would say, one of the most important challenges that we as a community are facing.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Thank you. Konstantinos, so what are your thoughts or opinion on what are the key topics and challenges for the future in future research in education, especially in math education?
My views are very similar to what Jana mentioned. Actually, I think that one important challenge for education is, yes, obviously the technological developments, mainly artificial intelligence. I think it's hard for most of us to see how these developments can affect mathematics education. That's why we need to study these phenomena carefully and extensively. A second challenge, agreeing with Jana again, is that there is a huge amount and diversity at the same time of approaches in education and mathematics education. On the one hand, the amount of studies, there are hundreds or thousands of studies being produced, right, and published. Mm-hmm. This huge amount is a sign of a healthy discipline, of a growing discipline. On the other hand, the amount of studies is so vast that it's hard for researchers even to follow all the developments. But it's also hard for the policymakers and for the teachers to be informed and to implement changes in their practice. So, agreeing with Jana, our challenge is to find ways to make the results of our studies more accessible and more applicable to the mathematics teachers.
Mm. Thank you, Konstantina. When it comes to the connection or link between the research and practices, is there do you have, how is it in Greece? Is there any signs of working researchers close to schools in little scale, big scale, or wish, of course, we might always wish on a bigger scale, but is there any movements towards the connection between practice and the research?
Yes, there are movements, but I wouldn't say on a large scale. Okay, what we have some, for example, in our national conferences, there are always special sessions in which teachers are invited to present their works, but these works are reviewed. So this, let's say, contains some kind of interaction between research and practice. At the same time, there are some movements by universities or by university professors are trying to, how to say, to implement some kind of novel approaches in teaching mathematics. But usually this is rather local, I would say.
Thank you. And Jana, how is now you are currently working in Switzerland, almost 1-2 years now from now? Do you know how is the connection between research and practice there?
In Switzerland, actually, it is very difficult to get into a collaboration with teachers. There are many administrative barriers to access to schools, but I have examples from France where collaborative research projects were developing very often researchers in mathematics education could work with either individual teachers or with the whole schools on a given research project that emanated from practice, from teachers. And so I think maybe this is one way how to share research results with teachers, but this is let's say, as Konstantinos said, at a local level. This is not a very large scale, but it was kind of widespread, and the government put a lot of means to make these collaborative research projects possible. Which is not the case in Switzerland, unfortunately. So
yeah, and I ask you this question of personal curiosity, and I also think and hope that those who are watching the interview also were a little bit curious because that is a challenge, but that is also an opportunity. And I also think that it's very important to reflect upon it, what you are saying, that there's a lot of good knowledge in the research community for the school, but there's also things in school that research community can learn, and there's a lot to win, especially for the math education, but also for the pupils in school, for whom the research is conducted to move the field forward, but not only just the field, but also how things are operationalized in schools and in everyday society, and even in politics, I would say, to have a critical view on how research might be used. So from here, we take us to the last part of the interview, and we call it a little from the private corner. So we will begin with asking Konstantino about his time outside work. So Konstantino, how do you spend your time outside work when you are not teaching at the university, doing research, writing? How do you spend your time outside work?
Well, this will be rather short answer. I like exercising. I like traveling, although I don't do this as much as I would like to. And I like spending time with my wife and my daughter.
Of course.
My time.
Yeah, but when you go on, when the time is given and you go and travel, so what do you enjoy the most? What are you doing then?
Well, my idea of traveling to a place is trying to see the place from the eyes of the locals. I don't like visiting. I avoid, let's say, visiting the obvious, the touristic places. I like seeing the other places. I'd like to experience how it feels to be, to live somewhere.
To live somewhere. Yeah. And Jana, how do you spend your time outside work?
As I work quite a lot with my head, I need to do some activities to clear my mind. And so I love gardening. So taking care of my garden. I have a very small garden, so yeah, this is just as enough to take care of it, and then doing some sport. So I love playing tennis, for example, or in winter skiing.
Thank you. A bit from your private corner. So there's another question from your private corner, and we will begin with Jana. So Konstantina, actually, again, get a little time to reflect. A tricky one. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And please do not answer, be interviewed by YERME, because that would be an answer. But is there something you have done for the first time not so long time ago? That was something I did first time in my entire life. Jana, give us some more insights.
I haven't thought about this question. What was the first time? I don't really.
Maybe something in regard to your thing you do in your garden, or maybe a sport you have tried, but that was the first time.
Yes, for example,
some new equipment you have been using, maybe some digital equipment or a tool you've been using.
I have never grown a lemon tree, and now I have a wonderful lemon tree with 2 marvelous lemons.
Oh, hopefully they will mature and be very nice. Thank you. We will get back to this and ask you on the next time we meet how it went with the lemon tree. Konstantinos, so when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Well, by the help of Jana's gardening, actually yesterday, I helped my mother a bit to cut the edges of the branches of some plants that we have in our balcony. It was interesting experience, I must say, and I don't remember myself doing it in all these years.
And then the results of that work probably will come in a couple of weeks. Then you see how it turned when the plants are getting started to grow.
Exactly.
So we will continue then with Konstantina, and then we brought us to the last question. So is there anything else than what you already shared with us you would like to share with the community of young researchers?
Well, despite all these challenges that we mentioned before, I think that the young researchers, the people who are currently working on their projects in mathematics education, are lucky today because they have access to many sources of information. They have access to many sources of feedback. So, like me and Jana mentioned before, to all the young researchers out there, be critical, but at the same time, take advantage of all the opportunities you are given. That's all.
Thank you, Konstantino. And Jana, so what would be anything else you would like to share with the young research community besides what you already mentioned?
I would perhaps add that the young people remain confident in what they are doing. I led a group during 4 editions of YESS, and what I could observe, they do a great work on their PhDs. So keep passionate about what they do and keep confident about the quality of their work.
Thank you, Jana. And thank you, Konstantino, for joining and for sharing with us your thoughts, your reflections, and telling us and sharing with us also, and being honest by saying that questions that we are asking are a bit challenging, even if you do have a very long experience as a researcher in math education, you do have a long career, but you are still challenged by things. And I think that is also a good way of sharing your experience and your thoughts that young researchers can recognize. So I would like to say thank you to both of you for joining us on the YERME interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your invitation, and thank you for all you do, both Dorota and Luca, for the young researchers. You do a very, very great job. Thank you.
I also thank you, and yes, congratulations for your work all these years for the young researchers. It's a great job. Keep up the good work.